Tonight we're driving the 2020 Ford Mustang GT Convertible. We have this beautiful 5-liter V8, makes 460 horsepower. We have a 6-speed manual transmission. This GT is equipped with a performance pack. So we have Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, 18-inch wheels. Yes, this is a good spec. Honestly, I think if I were to get a Mustang, I might swing for a convertible. This is just such a great cruiser. It makes all the right noises. It's fun enough to drive. I think the only other option I would check would be the mag ride. I mean, it'd either be this or like a GT350 or GT500. Let's walk you around this thing, get some first impressions on the interior, the exterior. You've got a little bit of space in the back seats there to throw some friends. There's also 2 covers in the back here, little plastic pieces that go over this area, so you've got a nice, smooth, seamless rear area for the top. There you go. Decent sized trunk. We're going to drive this a little bit tonight with the top down, and then we'll put the top up. This is a surprisingly livable convertible. There's that V8. Ford's still doing a good job with their engine bays. There's a little bit of plastic in there, but it looks pretty good if you want to open it up for the car show. A couple of hood vents here too. They seem functional. A little bit of heat coming out of there. Let's try to sit behind myself in the back seat. Of course, very easy to get in with the top down. It's a little bit cramped and tight back here, but it's doable. This is all right. Could handle this. Super easy to get in and out of. We have a few different drive modes here. You can select everything from your steering, sensitivity, and weight. I actually prefer comfort steering. You can set it to normal mode, your personal settings. Sport Plus, you can see the gauge cluster changes there. Track mode. Pretty cool. Let's try, let's set this to Sport Plus. I kind of like the gauge cluster in this setting. It's a little bit phallic, but that's okay. Decent reverse camera, all that stuff. But we don't really care too much about that. Let's see how this Mustang drives. Take it out for a little bit of an evening cruise. Honestly, some of my favorite conditions to drive this Mustang are at low speed parking lot settings. The burbles this thing makes. It has rev matching downshifts. Little pops. It's very satisfying to drive in the city. And in the evening with the top down, ooh, it's super enjoyable. We have a 7,400 RPM redline in this Mustang. They raised the redline on this engine back in 2018 with the refresh. It's not as torquey of a motor, I feel like, but those extra revs are really enjoyable. You have some decent driving dynamics here. This shifter is definitely a highlight for me. It's notchy, It's got some resistance to it. It feels really good in hand. And this rev matching system is perfect. Ford's done a really good job with this. The suspension tuning on this is a little bit Larry, to be honest. It's kind of all over the place. The ride quality is good enough, and unless if you're really pushing it, you don't feel it. But over bumpy pavement, under cornering, it's kind of all over the place. The steering doesn't have a lot of feel to it. It's pretty numb, but the noise this thing makes and this 6-speed manual make this a pretty enjoyable car to drive otherwise. It's comfortable. It actually gets pretty decent fuel economy. Charlie, in his daily motor fuel economy test, averaged 27 miles to the gallon in this thing on the highway on his 100-mile route. Let's put the top up here. Really quick operation. Only a few seconds to put this up and down, which is great because you can do it at a light. You have to be pretty much at a complete stop, and then it's manual the rest of the way. Like I said earlier, this is a really enjoyable convertible. I have fantastic visibility, especially out of the sides, and the rear view is actually pretty good too. Chassis feels pretty stiff, not a lot of cowl shake or scuttle or anything like that. I can't believe how this thing revs. It just goes and goes. The gearing's a little bit tall and the revs are a little bit high, but man, this thing really hustles. Sitting at just under 2,000 RPM at 70 miles an hour. There's virtually no torque in 6th. Get a little bit more power in 5th, but to do some passing on the highway, you're gonna have to drop a couple of gears. This thing is a lot of fun to drive. I think Ford has pretty much nailed the exhaust note on these Mustangs. This 5-liter V8, it's so sonorous. It's not too much, it's not too loud. I think this just hits the right mark. Few little burbles on the overrun. This is one of those muscle cars that's enjoyable to drive slowly and cruise in, and it's fun to drive fast too. I think, honestly, this is set up as a much better cruiser than a performance car, but it can do both, and that is nice. I like driving a modern vehicle that's still fun to drive slow, and sometimes when you get into something that's super fast, it doesn't necessarily translate to being fun, and this Mustang does. It's great. It is really big. It's got a pretty big footprint on the road. I definitely feel like I'm in something that's got a lot of size and heft to it. You feel the weight. You feel like you're in a truck with how wide it is in the lanes. But it can still hustle, especially on these Pilot Sport 4S tires. Those rev match downshifts into first are pretty addictive. This thing revs so high, you can hear the synchros kind of struggling at redline to shift into the next gear. It does it, but you definitely get some resistance there. Still have 1500 RPM left at $6,000. Oh, this is fun. So much fun. I can't really tell much of a difference between the drive modes, to be honest. Throttle tuning feels about the same between them all. May make more of a difference if you have the Magna ride. This makes all the right noises. And these Michelins are very sticky. They feel great. A few little shakes and rattles throughout the cabin. There's some strange paintwork on the front end with the headlights and the seams, and just some little Ford quality issues, but for the most part this thing is pretty good. It is expensive. This is $45,000 base price, and as tested we're at $52,000, but I've driven worse $50,000 cars that aren't half as fun as this thing. So you gotta pay to play. Let's put the top down real quick. Love how fast that is. Get it in the last quarter of a traffic light. This isn't a bad spec either. The red interior with the silver exterior is kind of understated, but when you sit down in it, you feel like you're in something exciting, something special. Got your 55-year Mustang plaque there. Again, one of my favorite cars to just cruise slowly around in a parking lot just because of how this exhaust sounds. You can just play with it. Alright guys, we will wrap up the drive there. Let's do a sound system test, see what these speakers sound like, and after that we should probably put the top up. Go into Apple CarPlay, turn on our soundtrack.
Like, ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
The grip in this thing is insane. These tires are really sticky, really, really good. Anyway, the sound system in this is great. It sounds really nice. It's crystal clear. It actually is pretty good with the top down as well. Pretty good audio system, and I think it's just the bass audio. There's nothing fancy here. It's fantastic. No complaints. Cruising on the highway, it eats up the miles. Sixth gear, you're you're sitting at 2,000 RPM, 27 miles to the gallon. This is a great cruiser. It's very comfortable at high speed. Really the only situation where I find this car to struggle is over bumps. And if you have smooth roads, you don't have to worry about it a whole lot. But here in Michigan, under hard cornering over bumpy pavement, I would definitely swing for the Magna Ride if you live in a rougher area, especially in the Midwest or Northeast United States. Otherwise, though, not too many complaints about this car. I would like a little bit better steering feel, maybe a little bit more accuracy. This thing is tends to be a little bit vague and numb. But that's where the sharpness from the higher performance Mustangs comes into play. And that's something I've noticed in everything below the GT350. Bridges become addictive. I just want every excuse possible to hear that exhaust note. Oh boy. Got a bunch of motorcyclists and all their broken down Harleys. I can't believe how much this thing revs. You think you're at redline and you still have $2,000 left to go on the tack. Alright guys, well that's going to sum it up with the Mustang. A really fun, endearing car. Not the best at anything, but it's just fun. It's enjoyable. I would like to compare one of these to a Camaro because I imagine the Camaro's dynamics are just going to be a little bit sharper. But you kind of can't go wrong with either option. Are you in Mustang or Camaro camp? Who knows? Alright, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Take care. Oh, and at night, you could even see the Mustang logo right there. For how long this has been in its life cycle, it still looks good, performs well. I wish it were just a little bit smaller. It's so big on the road. Maybe someday.